I am Ray, and once you learn the art of vibration, then everything changes. Once you learn what I'm about to share with you, the world will be your oyster, and you will have plenty of oysters. So I hope you like oysters. You see, what nobody seems to understand is that your energy determines what you experience. So for example, if you're always giving off fear-based energy, you will always experience situations that evoke fear out of you. And that happens because, well, our energy influences every other aspect of our life. And energy is frequency and vibration. And the rate of that frequency, meaning how fast or how slow the waves are vibrating, determines the quality of that energy. So, you could imagine the higher the frequency of the vibration, the more you reach toward heaven. And the slower the vibration, the more you grow towards hell. It's just a simple blueprint. But the map is not the territory, so what you will actually experience is, well, the more high vibe you are, the more you experience peace, joy, love, abundance, and the more low frequency you are, the more you experience suffering and pain and misery and problems. You get it. And people spend their whole lives not knowing why. Why is this happening to me? What can I do? And once you discover this, it becomes very clear about how to make your life better. And there's no more confusion. Like, oh, what do I have to do next? All that is required is that you learn how to manage your energy properly. Because it doesn't matter what you do. Whatever energy you're coming from, that's going to influence everything else in your life. So this is the secret. We got to take our attention away from the world and the materialistic aspect of reality. Because if you focus on the world, it's very easy to get your attention pulled all over the place by things happening. If a bad thing happens, it's going to mess up your energy. It's going to make you feel bad. If a good thing happens, it makes your energy better. And we don't want to live that way. We want to be the masters of our own energy regardless of what happens to us in this life. That's what it means to be free. Now, one of the frameworks that I really like to understand this, I learned about it from a book called Reality Transurfing. And it goes something like this. So you right now, you have infinite potential. This means there are an infinite number of versions of you living different lives. Like there's a version of you that woke up at 7 a.m. today, and there's a version of you that woke up at 7:30 a.m. And guess what? That chain of events absolutely changes the course of your life. And so on this infinite potential, there are these things called timelines. And so a single timeline is basically you waking up at 7, that's one timeline, 7:30, another timeline, and infinitely in between. So these timelines, they're infinite. I know it doesn't look infinite, but it's like we're surfing on the waves of infinite potential. And our mind is the tool that drives us. It's like the steering wheel. Go this way, go that way. Now on this spectrum of potential, there is heaven and there is hell and there is everything in between. Again, you're in hell when you're suffering all the time. And you're in heaven when you're not suffering all the time. When you're in peace, love, and joy. It's like the radiance. As you grow closer to heaven, the radiance of heaven, you begin to experience it more. Same thing down here. As you go down, you experience the radiance of hell until it gets hotter and hotter and hotter until you burn, burn, burn. So the key is, these are like radio stations. They all exist at the same time, but you can only be tuned in to one. And what radio station you're tuned into is determined by your mind, which is the little knob. Because our mind creates something called an energetic signature. And the energetic signature is the quality of your thoughts. Mostly, it all begins with your thoughts. But we can include actions, feelings, identities, whatever. And this is not like that crazy to believe. A negative thought has a negative energetic quality. A positive thought has a positive energetic quality. Not that complicated. So if we allow negative thoughts to fester in our life, it's going to continue to pull us down and down and down until we stop it. And typically we stabilize somewhere in between. And then we stay stuck there. Because a lot of people, by the time their brain is done developing, they've been done developing. That's why they say a lot of people die really young and aren't buried until they're really old. because psychologically they stop changing. So theoretically, people get stuck to one timeline in which they can't escape, or they can't stray very far from that timeline. And that is called being a slave to your fate. You're a slave to whatever this timeline has in store for you. You see, something interesting I discovered a while back. So whenever I would get stuck in addictive behavior and my state of being would be lowered, I would always experience bad luck afterwards. And it was so predictable. I knew I could predict it, 100% accuracy. And what I was thinking, I thought it was just the karma from the actions. Your actions have consequences. These are the consequences. And that was true to a degree, except something very interesting came to me one day. And what that was, well, maybe it's not so much about karma or the consequences of the actions. What if what happened was that I shifted to a lower timeline in which the problems were already there? I didn't do anything. I simply entered into a reality in which the problems, there was plenty of them. And that's why I believe they say, problems come in packs. You experience one problem, then you experience another problem. They come in like these big groups. And the reason I think that is because when we experience a problem and we go through it, usually it stresses us out. It messes with our energy. It lowers our energy because we get stressed out, because we allow the problem to get to us. Like, this sucks, I hate this. So you start to feel worse, a little bit worse. And because you felt a little bit worse, you went a little bit more down into a reality where there are even more problems. Because down here in Hell Radio, the very bottom, there's nothing but suffering and pain and death and problems. So as you grow closer down there, you start to get a little taste of that. So Hell Radio is the radio where all the songs, they suck, and Heaven Radio is all your favorite songs. And the songs on the radio are the experiences on the timeline. And which timeline you are placed in is determined by your overall energetic signature. And your energetic signature is determined by where you focus your mind. You become what you focus on, because you align yourself with that thing energetically. Life is all about energy. It's all one energy, if you didn't know that. It's like, have you ever seen those insects that make themselves look like a different creature to avoid getting eaten or something like that? Like a butterfly makes itself look like a bird, or a spider makes itself look like an ant, or the opposite, or a caterpillar makes itself look like a snake. These are just some different examples. How does this happen? It's because when you're in an environment, energy is being exchanged with everything in that environment. Everything is influencing everything else. So over time, evolutionarily speaking, the reason that these insects can do this is that they're just receiving energy from the external circumstances. They're receiving the energetic signature of the other animals and the intelligence within the bug, because it's all the same one intelligence. It knows how to evolve and adapt. There is only the one divine intelligence evolving itself through an infinite array of different forms. That intelligence knows exactly what you need, what I need, what the bugs need. And the reason we don't understand that is because we see reality from a place of separation. We say, oh, there's bugs, and there's trees, and there's human beings, and there's water, and there's clouds. We see all the separate forms. We don't see the one interconnected divine intelligence behind it all. And this is the source of much of our suffering. Because think about what happens when you, as a person, are faced with a problem. You, as a person, are either strong enough to overcome the problem, or it's going to take some time. But regardless, it's going to take some time, it's going to take some energy, it's going to be a little bit stressful, because you are operating from a limited state of consciousness called ego. But what happens, on the spiritual journey, we discover these spiritual ideas, we learn about the divine image. What is it that we have to do to align ourselves with heaven and God and become free from suffering? Well, part of that is becoming free from the illusion of separation and realizing that underlying unity behind it all. And the reason this happens is because the more you live from separation, the more you are like a separate entity in a hostile environment. There are threats everywhere. And this is what it's like to live in ego. You'll even see people, when you look at them on the street, they're looking, are you looking to fight with me? You can see the conflict in their eyes. You can see their level of consciousness of those who are living by ego. Like, what are you looking at? Because the ego is rooted in conflict and fear and survival, so it's always ready. It's always ready to fight or flight. And that perpetually keeps your energy in negative states. You're always feeling angry. One stupid thing happens, I'm angry. You're always reacting to things, on edge, ready to go to war, whether it's with yourself or someone else or a problem. And when you live from this state of consciousness, you do not have access to these higher timelines. You cannot, because your energy is like being put in this little box, or like a prison. It's being strangled by the stories, by the survival, by the fear, by the worry, by the negative thoughts. And you will see this is why religions talk about the different things they talk about, like non-judgment. Because what happens when you judge another person is that you pollute your own mind. It has nothing to do with the other person. For example, let's say you're religious and you don't like gays, for example. When you judge that other person for being how they are, all that you're doing is ruining your own peace. Because the thoughts you have about that person are going to have a negative tone. And those negative tones are going to make you feel negative. You're gonna have feelings of disgust or anger or annoyance. Or like this feeling like something's wrong, something must be done here. Frustration. And it's all just made up garbage. Sorry. It's all just ego mind games. The ego just wants to say, well, these are my beliefs and this is what I think, and you don't align with my beliefs. Therefore, you're wrong and I'm going to judge you for it. I'm going to fight you if need be. When someone's living from ego, don't bother trying to get them to see anything differently. Because they are biologically being held hostage, unable to see anything that goes in conflict with their already predetermined beliefs. But when you don't judge people, what happens? Your mind remains at peace. Who would have thought that if you just stopped ruining your own peace, you would be in peace all the time? Because peace is the default state. It's not about doing more necessarily, it's about stop doing stupid things. So, non-judgment. It leads you to be more in alignment with the divine image. Your energy is more aligned with the divine energy. Why? Because judgment lowers your energy. Because judgment allows negative thoughts to fester in your mind. And those negative thoughts influence your feelings. And because the thoughts are negative, you're going to feel negative. And if you allow those feelings to fester long enough, you're going to act on those feelings. And when you act on those feelings, you're going to create consequences in the world that reflect the underlying negative thoughts, which results in negative karma, problems you got to deal with down the road. Perhaps because we get stuck on these lower timelines. But once you learn how to shift the timelines, you never have to stay stuck ever again in your current reality. Whereas when you look at other people, and it always amazes me, people stay stuck for a long, long, long time. Because once the brain fully develops at 25, it's not that easy if you don't know what you're doing. And most people I see, they don't even start. They don't even try. They don't even try to learn about themselves, because I think everyone's just trying to do the best they can. Trying to stay afloat. And what I'm saying is, no, stop it. Don't live your life as a beggar. Until you understand your power, you will not be able to hold it. And even when you do understand your power, you probably still won't be able to hold it. It's a game of learning how to embody your power. And this is part of that. It's learning how to manage your energy to prevent yourself from lowering to negative states of consciousness. So before, when I was experiencing the bad luck, the negative karma, it was because I was still super attached to my identity as the ego, as the person. And that would create strong negative consequences because I was really invested in the story I was telling myself about what I was going through. Like, man, I really hate this. I really wish I wasn't going through this. But every single negative thought fueled that fire a little bit more, made me feel a little bit worse. And it becomes a feedback loop of death, where you keep thinking negative, you keep feeling negative, so you keep thinking negative, so you keep feeling negative. Down, down, down forever until you learn how to stop yourself. And what I did was, well, I had a spiritual awakening, which prevented me from identifying with my body or my mind any longer. I realized that I was not my thoughts, I was not the person I believed myself to be. And because I was no longer attached to the person, when I engaged in whatever behavior that would normally lower my frequency, the effects of that karma now is almost zero. Because before, when I was getting pulled all over the place by my negative thoughts, now I'm resting in stillness. It doesn't matter if I self-sabotage. It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter what I think. I'm no longer getting pulled all over the place by my thoughts or my experiences. So there's no longer an emotional toll from those experiences, because there's no psychological drama. There's no attachment to the drama. There's no attachment to the ego. On one level, it's, oh, I'm going through this, I hate this, this sucks. And on the other level, it's just things are happening. And you're just the witness of those things. And what I realize is that it doesn't matter what happens to you in this life. The only thing that matters is how you respond. Because I went from engaging in one bad habit, which would lead me down, create a lot of suffering, to being able to engage in that same habit, but now I'm better off afterwards than before, because I learned how to change my mind. Like, imagine if you're struggling with some addiction right now, and I told you, hey, every time you struggle with that addiction, you'll actually get better. Would you believe me? Probably not, because you're so used to going down. You're so used to feeling that pull, the negative influence. But what I'm here to tell you is that it's not the addiction that causes the problem. Sure, you might lose a little bit of energy, go down a little bit, but it's your reaction, it's the story that you play afterwards, that is what goes you all the way down. But at the same token, if you learn how to prevent your energy from being hemorrhaged by negative thoughts and negative reactions to things, doesn't matter if you engage in the addiction or the self-destructive behavior. You might go down a little bit, but then you'll go straight back up, because you never allow your energy to be drained by self-judgment and negative thoughts and shame and guilt and fear and all of this negative garbage. But instead, you continue to focus your energy, your mind, toward the divine image. Now, you have to know the divine image in order to align yourself with it, but there's plenty of information on that. Here's one example. So you're struggling with an addiction, let's say, some self-destructive behavior. Doesn't have to be a substance. And there's two ways you go about this. You engage in the self-destructive behavior, and because it's self-destructive, it causes suffering. This is the reality that you'd be dealing with. Now, you have the choice to ruminate on how bad it feels to suffer, or you have the choice to reframe your attitude. It's like if you fall off your horse, what do? Do you either sit on the ground and complain about how much it sucks, or do you get back on your horse and keep moving forward? If you focus on how much this sucks, your current life situation sucks, it's only going to make you feel worse. And those negative feelings and the negative thoughts, they're going to keep you stuck in the exact reality that you're trying to escape from. And if you really want to escape it, you got to listen and change your energy, because your energy changes first. I mean, you can deal with the outer world first, or you can deal with your energy first. The only difference is, when you're dealing with problems in the world, you're only dealing with the effects. You're trying to manage things that are happening. But when you focus on energy, now you're talking about dealing with the cause, the underlying cause of why things are the way they are. Because you might ask, like, okay, wait, like, let's say you're broke, you got no money. And you're sitting here like, man, what's this all about? I will show you the light. Because most people, what they do is they continue to focus on the external reality, the surface level of things. Like, okay, well, this is the situation I'm in. I'm broke. Okay, let's accept that. Now what? Well, okay, now I'm going to go look for a bunch of jobs, something that I don't care about because I want the money. Not realizing that money has been losing its value since its conception, and that time and energy are the most valuable things that you have. So you're going to trade the most valuable things that you have in this life for things that are not valuable at all. You know, not a fair deal. But people do that all the time. And then they put up with it, and then they get trapped in the monotony of daily life and responsibilities, find themselves 20 years later, still in the same dead-end job. That is the price of ignorance. Pause. Now, you can prevent yourself from getting stuck in this horrible life by learning how to change your energy. No. So I'll try to come up with a few situations. For example, let's say you're stuck in a stupid job that you hate. But you gotta do it because you gotta live, survive. So here's the thing. If that's you, the first problem we gotta deal with is that you're gonna be stuck in survival mode. Which means you're living from fear. You got the job because you were afraid of not having money. Same thing happens with relationships too all the time. But we'll focus on this first. First, you don't gotta quit your job or nothing. But you do have to start feeling differently. You gotta change the way you think. You gotta change your mind. You need a new story that is aligned with the divine image and not a lesser image. Now there's gonna be a pull. There's gonna be a war that's going on inside of you. There's parts of you that are being pulled out into the external world, driven by your animalistic body and your senses. And there's gonna be a part of you that wants to live and do something higher. The lower animalistic nature against the higher spiritual nature. So, when you start trying to feel better, just realize that fear is going to come up. So what I would do is I would create a new story for myself. Firstly, I might get clear on what I want. Like, okay, here's my current life situation. These are the things I don't like, and these are the things that I would prefer. So all you got to do is create a new story aligned around the things that you prefer rather than the things that you don't. So the original story might be, I'm living in a place I don't want to live, working a job I don't want to do to survive. I feel like I'm stuck. And what I'm telling you is that you're only stuck because of those thoughts, not the actual situation. And if you try this out, you will see how your life will change. So I would come up with a story like, my dream job is on the way. I don't necessarily know what it is. All I know is that I'm going to love what I do. And I'm going to get paid more than enough to meet all my earthly needs. You start crafting this perfect, ideal story of your life. And that fear is going to come up and say, oh yeah, nice dreaming there you got. But let's get back to reality. And you get to choose if you allow your mind to enslave you any further. Because it will do that, I promise you. Because when it comes to your survival, your body, your unconscious doesn't mess around. You really just start entertaining the possibility of something new coming into your life. And you just focus on it. Remember, what you focus on, you become aligned with. So literally, if you want the secret to success in under 10 seconds, focus on something long enough for something to happen. That's all it is. You're just more and more finely tuning your life to a higher timeline. And in the beginning, you will oscillate and your energy is going to flop all over the place. Like, okay, I want this new reality, but you're still attached to the old reality. So you get pulled into it. You flip-flop, until you stabilize in your desired reality. And in order to stabilize into your desired reality, you just got to focus it longer and longer and longer until the new reality becomes your current reality and your current reality becomes the old reality. And you just have fun with it. Like when you're at work, you start daydreaming. How wonderful it's going to be to finally be financially free. How wonderful it will be to work every single day with meaning and purpose and doing something I love. Something I love. And you will also gain a new lisp. And all of this is free. Because right now you can daydream in your imagination a better life. Now, when you daydream about that imaginary future, that alone is not enough. You need to be certain that it is true for you. That is the most important thing. You just want to become more and more certain, more and more trusting, more and more faith. Because without that faith and trust, your mind's going to oscillate back. You have faith and trust in what you know. And if all you know is suffering and pain and misery, you're going to have faith and trust in suffering. You're going to have faith and trust in your current situation that sucks. So you're always going to have faith and trust in something. It's just moving your faith and trust to something better. So when you dream about your ideal future, you can't also say, well, that would be nice, or maybe one day in the future, or not yet. or I'll be happy when. If any of those kind of ideas come with you, it's not going to work. Because by saying those things, you're telling yourself you are not where you want to be right now. So that's the reality that you experience. You're training your body, your system, to not be happy now. This is why we're focusing on energy, because it's fundamentally reframing the way you look at the world. It's not so much like, okay, well, I'm in this current situation. Maybe after all of these years of work, I can be somewhere better. I can live somewhere better. I can have a better job. I can meet better friends. You're setting yourself up for years of work, which is not necessary. You're assuming those things into existence, and you don't have to. And you will begin to see how these stories affect your energy. And once you see that, it's much easier to kind of manage them. So when you're daydreaming about the future, you want to immerse yourself in that experience as if it's happening now. And you don't want any other idea of future. You want to feel as though it's happening now. Don't allow the mind, the judge, the governor to mess up your energy. Because what will happen if you can focus on the reality in your imagination and feel as though it is real, which you will, if you can immerse yourself in the imaginary act. You align your energy with that imaginary reality. You draw it a little bit closer to you, and a little bit closer, and a little bit closer. And if you can just stay persistent and consistent, eventually you will stabilize in that new reality, and your reality will shift. And what's probably going to happen is that your life is going to fall apart first. But if you're living down here, well, it doesn't matter if your life falls apart. You want it to fall apart because you have to make room for something better. So you might get fired. And you might say, well, I thought the guy was helping me live a better life, not a worse one. Now I have no job. The survival, the fear, the worry is going to come down like Jaws and try to squeeze your butt. And you have to stay on course and say, no, something better is coming along. I can feel it. I know it's coming. I know it's here. Whatever is meant for me is already mine. I don't have to do anything about it. It's already mine. There's nothing that I can do in this life that could prevent me from receiving what is already mine. So I can't mess it up. I can't ruin my life. I can't make the wrong decision. And you just have patience. And you wait. But you have to wait with good energy. This is why dealing with your energy is far more important than anything else. Because otherwise, you're going to be busy doing things in the world, that's fine. But from this framework, a lot of what you do is just wait. Wait and be patient. Because you don't have to do anything. You just have to manage your energy. You have to keep yourself in abundance. You have to keep yourself in a positive frame of mind. Because when you're in a positive state of mind, you open up mental real estate. Meaning you have more resources to deal with things. You're literally smarter and more intelligent when you're happy. And all of your resources are suppressed and repressed when you're in a negative state of consciousness. When you're in survival mode, when you're in lack and scarcity. Let's take relationships. Maybe you're in an unhappy relationship, or maybe you have no relationship. And that's going to cause some frustration and irritation, a little bit of suffering. But we have to let go of our attachment to our desires. Because so long as we are strongly attached to our desires, it's going to mess up our energy. We're going to feel lack and scarcity. Having the strong desire and entertaining that story of like, I don't have what I want, I don't have what I want, I don't have what I want. Well, you're just affirming the reality that you don't want. So to actually get what you want, you have to let it go. So it's not messing with your energy anymore. You got to be a little bit detached, a little bit indifferent. You got to find a little bit of contentment now. Because if you want to align yourself energetically to the version of you that's already with your perfect partner or with the perfect job, in order to do that, you have to find contentment. Because they are content. They're not so desperately trying to find and get what you are trying to desperately find and get when you're down here. Because the version of you up here already has that stuff. So why would they have a strong desire? If you want to find love, you must become the source of what you seek. If you want to find abundance, if you want to find health, whatever it is you're looking for, you are the source of it. And until you recognize that you are the source of it, you're always going to be a little bit of a slave to the world. This is what we're doing. We're taking our power back from the world and saying, no, this is what I desire. Now you might say, well, I thought you just said I don't have the desire. What are you talking about now? Having desires is not wrong. It's what happens after the desire comes that creates all the problems. So don't just lie to yourself like, okay, I'm going to pretend that I don't want abundance, so then I can have abundance. That will work. No, just be real. Be honest with yourself. Stop trying to be so spiritual. Stop trying to be so much of anything. Just be real. You say, I want to be rich, or I want a relationship. I want a partner. And if you're clear on if that's what you want, then you move to the next step. You don't got to be so like worried if I'm honest and I say I want these things, then I won't get them, because if I say that I want them, it means that I'm separate from them. And the guy on the internet said that's not good. If you can't learn to stand on your own 2 feet and think for yourself, this isn't going to help you anyway. It's like, no, just what feels right to you. Make your own judgments. If I wanted a relationship, what I would first do is learn how to love myself above all else. To not judge myself, to accept myself for who I am, all the ugly parts. It's a process of self-love. You become the source of love. And now when you get into a relationship, well, guess what? Your cup is overflowing. And if your cup is not overflowing, the relationship will fail. Most likely. Not because necessarily you do anything wrong, it's just that 2 limited people who are messy, who have all of this baggage coming together, you either work through it and figure it out, both characters are strong enough, or if the characters aren't strong enough in the relationship, well then it fails. Because one person is messy enough. Now you got 2? But when you've already worked all your stuff out, I mean, maybe not all of it, but you know how to love yourself and appreciate yourself and not tolerate nonsense and be able to set boundaries and say, this is what I will accept and this is what I won't. And if you do this, I'm going to cut you off because your behavior is unacceptable. All of that is self-love. And it's aligning yourself with the divine image. So what will happen is that the more you enter into this resonance, you naturally rise higher and higher until you find, well, your dream partner. And again, you're going to have patience, because you can go out there and find a lesser thing, a lesser partner, or a lesser job, or a lesser this, or a lesser that. And you can find some little bit of satisfaction in that. But if you get out of the way, and you just be patient, and you just continue to resonate in the energy of your desired reality, you continue striving for this divine image, and everything else works out perfectly on its own. But think about relationships that were born from fear. And what if I'm alone? I mean, that kind of sucks, does it not? Like the whole foundation of the relationship was built on what if I'm alone? So I'm just going to take the first thing that I get? That is not self-love if you're in that kind of relationship. But this happens all the time, especially with older women. Because, you know, a woman in her 30s, no offense, it's a little harder to find a mate than if, you know, in your early 20s. So what happens sometimes is that, you know, the clock's running. And so you get into a relationship or you get married or you find a partner because, well, time's running out. It's the last thing I got and I have to do it. And then you wonder why the relationship sucks. And as a man, you never want to get in that situation of, you know, the girl had fun all throughout her 20s, now wants to settle down. Don't be the chump. Because the chump says, well, at least she's giving me some attention. So you settle for less out of fear, survival, lack, and scarcity, and then question why 10 years later they divorce you and screw up your life. Because from the very beginning, the foundation was poor. And as it said, if you get on the wrong train, the longer you wait to get off, the more expensive the return ticket will be. These are just examples of the suffering that will happen if you act from lack and scarcity, if you act from survival. Same thing with money. I got no money. I got to get a job. I got to get any job. Like, okay, that's fine if it gets you into the momentum of moving and doing things. But then what? It doesn't end there. That's just the beginning. That's not even the beginning. It's the preface. Like, okay, yeah, you got a job because, you know, you needed it. But you entered into that job from lack and scarcity and survival. So there's no gold at the end of this rainbow. It's just more of just the same. And if you are under this illusion that things will somehow change, it's how the slaves are kept slaves. Because if I tell you, hey, just keep doing it, just keep going, just keep working hard, just keep working consistently, and one day everything will be better. Just keep moving, keep doing it, keep doing your job. One day things will be different. And that gives us hope. Like, okay, if I just keep working hard at this thing that I hate, then one day, never realizing that it's a trap. That if you don't find love now, you will never find it. Because the illusion of this world is believing that love is outside of you. That abundance is outside of you. That peace or joy is outside of you. You assume the job is the source of abundance, and you are wrong. You assume that the relationship is the source of love, and that is wrong. The more we're living in ignorance, the more we will suffer and experience hell. And the more we're aligned with truth, the more we will experience the opposite. So the difficult thing about this is that there's some fundamental ways that we're looking at the world that have to change. And some people spend their whole lifetimes of conditioning stuck in these ways. So, you got some work to do. Because your conditioning is probably going to say, well, no, we can't ignore these problems in our life. We can't just pretend that things are different than they are. You can't do that. But again, that's just your survival mechanism, hijacking your attention to avoid some future negative potential. Some kind of suffering, some kind of problem. Your animal body is consuming your higher spiritual nature. And it has to be the other way around. That's why in the Gospel of Thomas, Yeshua, he said, if the lion eats the man, not good, because the man becomes lion. But if the man eats the lion, good, because the lion becomes man. You do not want to be consumed by your animal nature. You want to consume your animal nature and integrate it into your whole system. It begins with making the choice of taking the higher path versus the lower path. And even if you choose the lower path a whole bunch of times, it doesn't matter. You just keep going up. Keep focusing on what is good. That's all you have to do. You find that vision for your life and you just hold on to it like a pit bull with a nice tasty bone. And you don't let anything take you away from that. Because the more focused you can be, the more you will align yourself energetically with whatever it is you focused on. The whole name of the game is being unwavering. Having unwavering faith. And this is why God is the cheat code to life. Because if you just give it all to God, it saves your energetic signature. Because you're no longer placing these burdens upon yourself, stressing yourself out, worrying about how am I going to do this? How am I going to get what I want? And the thing is, even if you don't believe in God, the point I'm trying to make here is that the way that this affects your underlying energy is going to change your life fundamentally. If you don't believe in God, well then the whole world is upon your own shoulders. And guess what? If the world is on your shoulders, you're always going to be stressed out. Because you're always going to be trying to control your reality. And this is like Buddhism 101. Life is changing. We suffer because we are attached to life. We're attached to things. So things are always getting ripped away from us. There's no stability. So the more you try to control your life, the more you're going to get pulled all over the place by your thoughts and by your experiences. And that's going to mess up your energy. It's going to keep you stuck in a reality that you're not really that interested in living. But when you can just remove all of that, return to zero, well, I don't have any burdens because I don't have to figure it out. God has already figured it out. I don't have to think about where I'm going to work. I don't have to think about what job I'm going to do. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with you. At least not anymore. Because so long as you are in the equation, so long as you are in the way, it's pretty much impossible not to be a slave to your thoughts and your experiences. Because everything is personal, everything is relevant to you. If life isn't going the way you want it to, well, you're always going to be annoyed by that. But as Ram Dass once said, well, life is pretty easy for those who have no preferences. When you have no preferences, what is there to be stressed out about? What is there to feel bad about? You're not trying to make reality a certain way. You can see how these different attitudes, these different mindsets, they change your energy in fundamental ways that will be reflected in your life. What does it mean to have no preferences? It means that you already know that life, that God, the source of everything, is already bringing to you everything you could have ever desired. And there is no fantasy that you can have that is better than the truth, that is better than the reality on the way. You enter into this new reality, this new story. So you just start being open to these new stories of how life could be. You allow curiosity to get the best of you. Like you're in a poopy job, and you say, I wonder what if suddenly a better job came into my life, a job that I actually love, a job that actually makes more money. So you can do less work and make more, and actually live a life of purpose and meaning. And you just say, what if? And you can feel it. You could feel the presence of that new reality. It's hard to put into words, but it's an intuitive thing. You can feel the presence of future experiences. And what you'll do is you'll get a little bit of excitement. Like, oh yes, this is gonna be great. And you just feed that excitement. You're just like, yes, yes, yes. More of this. Because you find that your thoughts shape the way you feel. But you have an imagination that is infinite. So you can make yourself feel any way by choosing to focus on different things. If you focus on your current reality that sucks, well, guess what? You're gonna feel bad. But if you focus in your imagination on the reality that you want, you're going to feel good. Your body doesn't know the difference between what is true in the world or in your imagination. This is how you create any reality that you desire. The potential is already there. Creation is already finished. There's infinite potential everywhere, which means that there are no limitations. Now, if you were born 5 foot, you're not going to have the inclination to go be a NBA superstar. And so you don't want to be so attached to needing things to be the way they are or the way you want them to be, but you allow life to bring forth things you didn't even know you wanted. Because what can happen is that you have a mind attachment, like, I want to be an NBA superstar, but I'm only 5 foot. Well, no matter how hard you try to manifest, no matter how hard you practice the law of attraction, there is no reality in which you play that role well. And there's an opportunity cost of all the better things that you could be doing with your time. But if you're so attached to, I gotta have it this way, you're losing out on all those things. So you kind of look into your heart and ask yourself, what feels right? What if I had all the time in the world and all the money, what would I be doing with my time? And you never allow that judge to come in and mess up your energy. That is the villain in this story, the mind, who will come along and say, no, you can't do that because you're not good enough or for whatever reason. And I make such an emphasis on you trusting your own inner guidance because when I do these videos, I say a lot of things that are paradox. Two opposite things that are true at the same time from different perspectives. So in one moment, I'll say one thing and then another moment, I seemingly contradict myself. So therefore, the only way to know the right thing to do is to trust your own judgment. So on one level, you don't allow the mind to cut you off from your dreams, but at the same time, if you're 5 foot and you want to be an NBA superstar, at what point do you give up on that dream? Because you can be stubborn and really try hard. But again, you got on the wrong train. Is that being negative and saying, well, I'm not going to listen to this negative voice telling me I can't be an NBA superstar? But eventually you realize, okay, that's stupid. I never wanted to do that. I just thought I wanted to do it. Something else comes along. This is a game of spontaneity. We're living in the unknown because we don't know what's going to happen. And the fact is that we most often don't even know what we want. We think we know what we want, but we have to also be okay not knowing. Because until you're okay not knowing, until you can say, I don't know, well then you're not open for receiving these higher, better things. If you're so attached to life has got to be this way, well, life can't give you something better. So what you want to do is you want to use your mind as a little tuning tool to tune you into higher realities. So if you imagine the mind is the knob on the radio dial, but your emotions are the gravity. The emotions are the act of tuning the dial, of moving it. So you point your mind in the right direction and you feel your way. That's what brings you toward alignment. So literally all you do is you take your attention away from all that you don't desire and you focus it only on everything that you do desire. I mean, you have this power. You can point your mind in any which way you want. So why would you not focus it on the things you do want? Well, the reason we don't do that is because we don't realize our power. We don't realize the opportunity cost. We don't realize what we're even doing. Because if you were realizing that you were ruining your life by focusing on all this garbage, you wouldn't do it. But that's the whole game of life, is that we don't know the consequences. And day by day, you just become more and more clear about what heaven means to you. What brings you joy? What brings you peace? What brings you love? And you just do more of those things. You entertain the stories that you want to entertain. You are the director of your life. So if right now you don't have friends, you can tell yourself, I always attract the best friends. And you repeat that story over and over again until it becomes true. And it will be true if you can focus on it long enough to see the fruits being bear fruit. Probably not that tasty. Fruits made up out of bears. Is that what they call them, berries? It's like watering a seed. If a seed requires 10 cups of water every day, but you only feed it 5 cups of water, it's not going to survive. Meaning, if you don't focus on the ideal long enough, it will only partially be made manifest in your life. For example, let's say you want a healthy, perfect relationship. Well, on that journey to focusing and reinforcing that story of, I always attract the best relationships. If there's still some fear and survival and lack in scarcity, on your journey to being congruent with that new story, well, you might attract a half partner, where they're half kind of okay and they're half not. And that happens because we weren't fully congruent with the story. There's a part of us that says, yes, I do attract the best people, but there's a part of us that says, no, I attract toxic. So the person becomes half good, half toxic. You only attract people that are half good, half toxic. Same goes for both ways. If you're living in the story of, I only attract toxic people, where you're only going to attract toxic people because you're going to be stuck down here in which the toxic people are already there. You're in lower states of consciousness. So you live in a world where other people living in low states of consciousness are also living. And you might say, well, that doesn't make much sense. We all assume that we're living on the same earth. So we all assume that it's the same one reality for all of us. And it's not. We confuse objective reality with subjective experience. So maybe there is one earth, but there are billions of worlds. Every single human being is living in their own little world because it's their own unique subjective experience of reality. So we think we're experiencing objective reality. This is the way that life is. And because other people are experiencing the same thing, we assume that to be the truth. Like, if you say that life is hard, and you see someone else and you talk to them and they also say that life is hard, well, guess what? You're going to assume that that's the truth. But that just so happens to be both your subjective experiences. And because you're living in that story, that is what you experience. Or if you say something like, well, making money is hard, or there's no good people left to be in relationships with, that is nothing more than a reflection of you, not a reflection of the truth. Because there are people who live happy, perfect relationships. And there are people who effortlessly live in abundance. So what is it that's separating you from them? What is it? It's your energy. And it's the stories you tell yourself about what you think is true. And because you believe it to be true, why would you ever question it? That's the problem. When we assume we know the truth, we stop looking for it. You have to be the cause of your reality. Meaning you decide what stories you believe are true. And well, if a story leads you to suffering, by definition it is not true. And if something leads you toward heaven, by definition it is true. That's how you know. There is infinite abundance and infinite lack and scarcity everywhere in the universe. Because these two things, these two forces, are exact opposites. There's an infinite abundance of suffering and hell all the time. That's why they say eternal hell. And there's an infinite abundance of positivity and good things and love. Eternal life. Doesn't matter what you think is true. It matters what you choose to focus on. And it will become true for you. And that's something that we're dealing with as a human species right now. We're having to contend with the fact that the objective reality is not as important as you think it is. And what matters most is your subjective experience. That is reality. We don't experience objective reality. So forget about it. Don't think that you understand objective reality unless your understanding leads you toward heaven. Because only then can you have faith and trust in the accuracy of your understanding. And what you want to do is, as you start getting clear on the new vision for your life, all you want to do is start finding the evidence that reaffirms the story that you do want to experience, and you start ignoring the evidence that comes into conflict with that. And once you find that evidence, now the fun begins. Because you realize, oh, that guy, the crazy guy on the internet wasn't just talking about random stuff. That makes no sense. You see for your own eyes, oh, there's something to it. Like, for example, if you're looking for a new job and you start feeling, oh, the right job will come to me. I don't need to worry about it. And you just move on with your life. Out of the blue, someone will come along and provide you a job opportunity. And you will know that it is the right thing to do because you were waiting for it. You were expecting it. You assumed that a job will fall out of the sky and enter into your lap. Now, even if the job on the surface doesn't really align with what you thought it was going to be, we must understand that our mind is just a limited state of consciousness. It doesn't understand the big picture. It doesn't understand fully how things are going to unfold. So things will unfold most likely in a way that is surprising to you because you're not thinking about it beforehand. You're not planning it beforehand. You're living a more spontaneous life. And you don't logically judge the situation and say, oh no, well, that's not what I wanted. I didn't want this job. This job is falling into my lap, but I don't want it. Because it's not matching my expectations of what I want. Instead, you live from trust and faith and say, okay, I'll give it a shot. Because you begin to see how life works. And life is kind of testing you sometimes and testing your faith and saying, well, are you going to take the leap of faith? Are you going to go for it and see what happens? Or are you going to play it safe, play it survival? And it's always going to be scary at first because it's going to be chaos. That's what change is. It's chaos. And we are naturally afraid of chaos. And we settle for order, safety, and survival. So you got to have the courage to make that decision, make that leap when it comes. Same thing with the partner. Maybe life doesn't give you the exact partner you wanted, but the partner that's best for you. The partner that will lead to the most love, joy, peace, and abundance. So we have to let go of our expectations, but at the same time, assume the best. And we get in this game of just kind of seeing how it goes. Instead of saying no or yes, we say maybe, let's give it a shot. Because you can always just backtrack, If life presents you to a new job and it ends up not working out, you can just quit. If life gives you a new relationship and it doesn't work and you don't like it, you can just leave. But what you'll find is that the things that life gives you are most often stepping stones to something greater. So you might be confused up front, like, I didn't ask for this. But then you will see, hindsight is 20/20. Maybe the relationship wasn't meant for you. Or maybe the job wasn't meant for you. But the job or the relationship led to the actual truth later on. Or the actual desired reality. Because the fact is that in order for us to receive all that we desire in this life, we have to change. And life will present to you the exact opportunities for you to change in the way that needs to be done, even if you don't understand it. So you begin to see, oh, wait a minute. This right here is the stepping stone to what I want. This right here is shaping me into the individual that I need to become. Think about what that kind of story does to you. Like, you're a slave to addictions and self-destructive behavior. And when you indulge in the addictions, instead of saying, oh, I'm such a bad person, I hate myself, lowering your states of consciousness, falling further and further and further down, you say, oh, well, God's just shaping me into the one I need to become. Through this addiction, through this self-destructive behavior. It's burning off all that doesn't serve me. So instead of falling down and being miserable, you go up. That's what I was saying earlier. It's like, you can have your addictions help you and serve you and make you better instead of destroying you. if you could just change your attitude. If you can realize that your addiction is not a problem and not here to destroy you, but it's here to serve your highest spiritual growth, change the story in your brain, and that story will be made manifest for you. So whenever the addiction or self-destructive behavior comes, because you react to it differently, you react to it in a positive way instead of a negative way, you feel good. So what was once causing all of the suffering, making you miserable, now actually it helps you? Yes, because your body releases the good feeling chemicals based on how you react to your experiences. If you react positively, happy chemicals. If you react negatively, not happy chemicals. So you can see, it's not what happens to you, it's how you react. As Eckhart Tolle once said, the primary cause of our unhappiness is not what happens to you, but your thoughts about what happens to you. It's all the psychological drama that creates all of the suffering. So it's learning how to protect your energy from the external world, from all of the distractions and all of the things that are going to be wanting your attention. You focus in on yourself. You resonate in your own energy, in your own field. You put up boundaries and prevent others from influencing your energetic signature. And the more you resonate in your own story, the more you are solid in your frame of approaching reality. And when you're more solid, you're more certain. You can trust yourself more. You can have more faith in life. And then anything that you desire is a lot easier to receive. The process is extremely simple, but because we are complicated, we overcomplicate it. All you got to do is have faith and trust that what you want to have happen will happen. That it's already done. And you know it's already done because you can imagine it. It exists as potential in your imagination, and if you want to bring that potential into actuality, all you got to do is focus on it long enough for something to happen. But if you focus on it a little bit, and then you focus on something else and get distracted and forget and allow the negativity in, well, you're never going to have enough stability in order to actualize that potential. So you'll actualize something lesser. The more focus, the more congruent, the easier it is to receive. And this takes time on this journey. You have to build your faith and trust muscles. Because in the beginning, if you've lived your whole life in survival, you're not going to have trust. The fear is stronger than the trust. You got to flip that ratio. You got to learn to realize that life is taking care of you all the time. That you don't have to struggle as much as you think you have to struggle. Look at the birds and the lilies in the field. They do not toil, and yet God takes care of them. How much more would God take care of you? That's the secret. You got to realize that God is always taking care of you. And you got to get out of your own way. You got to get out of your own personal little hell. So it all begins with entertaining a new story, the story of what you desire. And you just focus on it long enough to see something happen. And the more certain and the more faith you have, the more it will become true. And the less faith and trust that you have, well, the less likely it will be true. And then you might say, oh, well, he was lying, it doesn't work. Back to my slavery. All you want to do is feel certain in what you desire. And you don't got to be specific. It's better to not be specific. It's better to be broad. Like, I always attract the best relationships. Instead of, I'm going to attract this person who has all of these details and who is like this and who is like this. Doesn't mean you can't do that. It just means you want to allow life to bring forth to you something better than expected. Because when we're too attached to the outcome, when the outcome isn't what we want, we suffer. We get annoyed, lowering our state of consciousness. Same thing with a job. You want to have faith and trust that my life's purpose will be made obvious to me. The job that is meant for me is already mine. And there's nothing that I can do to stop that. And there's nothing that anyone else can do to prevent me from experiencing all that I desire. You get to choose what thoughts you entertain. You get to choose what stories you believe in. And the stories you believe in and the thoughts that you choose to entertain will determine the quality of your life. And that is all. And people will complain and say that no, well, it's this fault, this person's fault, or the government's fault, or society's fault, or whatever fault other than your own. You couldn't imagine that the reason our life is the way it is for no other reason than because of the thoughts and the stories we choose to entertain. because we're externally focused. No, it's the external reality is the cause for my unhappiness. It's because I'm broke that I'm unhappy. No, you're broke because you're unhappy. You're broke because you're living in lack and scarcity. That's your energy. Your energy doesn't lie. And you can't pretend. It's like your external circumstances result in poverty. Your energy is lack and scarcity. There's no other reason. Now, your circumstances may have not been fair, and so you were born into poverty and lack and scarcity. You've never escaped it yet, but I'm not talking about fair. I'm talking about the way things are. Your reality is a reflection of your energy. If you want to change your reality, you got to change your energy. And if you want to change your energy, well, you have to realize that the problem is in you and not outside of you. Because so long as you're focusing on the problems outside of you, you're just wasting your time. Because in this ever-changing reality, there is a never-ending stream of problems all the time. So focusing on them and dealing with them and trying to overcome them all is not an effective tactic. It's like the Hydra. You cut off one head, more heads appear. That is life. It's the chaos. And most of the things outside of you are outside of your control. So you just suffer for no reason, needlessly. Because you're focusing on things you can't do anything about, so it's just suffering for no reason. At least if you have a problem and you do something about it, you stop suffering in the meantime. Because the only reason that you suffer is because you're focusing on the problem and how much it sucks. But if you're in the present moment, you're in a flow state, you're doing things, there is no suffering. There's only suffering when you stop and think about the problem. You'll see it, and you'll be in disbelief to realize that it's not what happens to you that is the problem, but that the whole time it was your reactions. You'll realize eventually that problems don't actually exist. Mistakes don't actually exist. It was only our judgment of life that was the problem. Life is already perfect. And people will say, no, haven't you seen the war? You either get to focus on the perfection of everything, or you will focus on the imperfection of everything. Both can be true equally at the same time, depending on where you're standing. Because if you're in hell, I guarantee you, you will not for one moment ever entertain the idea that life is perfect, because you do not experience it. Now, because I've experienced both, I understand that this is the truth, not this. Hell is a relative truth. Suffering is a relative truth, because we only experience suffering because of our relative nature. Only the body suffers. Only the mind suffers. Only the person you believe yourself to be suffers. Because only the person has desires and aversions, things they want to avoid. Only in separation do we experience hell. But the ultimate truth, the absolute truth, the eternal truth, is peace, love, joy, and abundance. Is heaven, is God, is life. And if we want to connect with life and experience all that we've ever desired, all that we have to do is take that little mind of yours and point it in the right direction. Step by step, day by day, you stop focusing on all the things that make you feel suffering, and you start focusing on all the things that make you feel good. And I don't mean like good, like temporary pleasure good. I mean good as in, I feel that I'm on the right path. I feel like this is the right thing to do. I feel like I'm aligned with my soul's purpose. And you will feel when you stray from that path. Because you'll feel suffering, you'll feel off, you'll feel like something's not quite right. Something has to be done. And what has to be done is that we have to change our energy. So whenever you find yourself suffering, getting caught in your mind and your thoughts, ruminating about your negative circumstances, realize it's all good, no worries. Just take a moment, take a deep breath, feel and breathe into those feelings. The fear or the worry or the shame or the doubt. Just feel it, just be with it, don't run away from it. Because what you resist persists. If you want to neutralize the doubt or the fear, you have to be with it, you have to feel it fully. And when you feel it fully, you neutralize it, you prevent it from lowering your state of consciousness. But if you don't manage that feeling when it comes, you will allow your negative thoughts to start snowballing out of control through your reaction to the feeling. Like, oh no, I'm feeling bad. It's because of this. It's because I did this. Or it's because I'm not doing this. Psychological story all day, every day. You got to catch yourself, pull yourself out of it. Like, oh wow, I was just being dragged along by my feelings and my thoughts, and I had no ability to do anything different. But it's your awareness that prevents you from getting stuck in those spirals. Oh, I just saw myself for the first time reacting negatively to my feelings. A little bit of fear came up, and then I started thinking negatively. And because now I'm thinking negatively, now I'm feeling worse. You gotta stop that momentum. You gotta, by catching yourself, react to your emotions like fear or worry. You catch yourself ruminating. That's all you gotta do, is catch yourself. Because in that moment, you will have a decision. Do I continue feeding the life that I don't want, or do I start feeding the life that I do want? And it doesn't matter if you engage in the self-destructive behavior. It doesn't matter if you feel like you've done the wrong thing. It's not about what you do. It's about your response to life. How are you responding to life? Are you dancing through it and enjoying every experience, even the negativity and the rainy days and all the negative things that happen into your life? Are you enjoying it all? Or are you actively, desperately trying to run away from suffering and all the pain that you're experiencing to find some relief? I heard it put like this once. If you've ever seen the figure Atlas, he's an ancient figure, and Atlas is seen carrying the world on his shoulders. I was listening to a talk by Swami Sarvapriyananda, who is a Hindu monk, and he was saying, well, Shiva is like dancing on the world. And it's such a beautiful representation of the two different types of consciousness that you can experience. You can experience a reality where the whole world is upon your shoulders, and you have to carry that burden. You have to be the one to figure it all out. But when you tap into your Shiva nature, you start effortlessly dancing through life. So for one person, the world is crushing them, and for another person, those same experiences are a source of worship, of celebration. And this is what you will experience. Because I experienced both. I know what it's like to be crushed, and I know what it's like to be free. And the same problems that used to crush me are now, I dance all over them. Why and how? It's because when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Those who look at God do not see the world, and those who look at the world do not see God. That is the dichotomy between Atlas and Shiva. Those who look at the world, who are so obsessed with their earthly life in this particular form, they are like Atlas with the world on their shoulders. They're living in separation, individuality. But those who look at God, they do not see the world, and therefore they have no world to be burdened. And that is why one is able to dance through life. Because when you're focused on God, there are no worries, there are no burdens, there are no concerns. There is only love. There is no fear, there is no worry, there is no doubt. There is only peace. There is only trust and faith. So what does it matter what you go through? It's all good. It's all good forever. For all eternity, it's all good. You never have to worry about a single thing in your life ever again. And your survival instincts will come up again and try to pinch your butt and say, no, we can't be doing that. Because if you don't worry, you might die. So you gotta worry. More worry. Press the worry button. Worry, worry, worry. But all that's gonna do is gonna keep you stuck. Again, it's not so much a process of doing more. It's a process of removing that which is keeping you stuck. It's a process of being aware of those negative thoughts, of your tendency to react negatively to your circumstances, to your experience, to your thoughts, to your feelings. And the more aware you become, the more easy it is to make the choice that is life-affirming. The answers become more obvious. The path illuminates before you. As Jim Carrey once said, all it is, every day, a single choice, to choose love or fear. That's all it is. The choice is yours. I am Ray, and if you feel like your negative thoughts are ruining your life, I encourage you to check out Mastermind Mastery. I made it just for you. Much peace and many blessings, and remember, just be